Now I'm going to forewarn you. Last weekend I drove into town, and as soon as I got here, I picked up a summer cold. Welcome to Ohio. So, in 2006, I quit my job, packed up everything that I owned, and moved from a tiny town here in northern Ohio, just 85 miles east of here, to the big city of St. Louis, Missouri, with my trusty laptop and a cell phone and a very, very tiny apartment. I started my own internet marketing company. Let's see if we can get this going. There we go. And I started to dive into everything that you could do to market a business online. At the time, I was learning brand new social networks called Facebook and Twitter. Wow, what were those things, right? I started doing online classified ads, and I dipped my toes into the world of blogging, and that for me changed everything. Now, in the years since, I've developed a reputation as a somewhat prolific blogger. Some have even called me the hashtag blogging brute before, and as Mia mentioned yesterday, some people might suggest that I'm actually blogging right now at this moment, but I wouldn't know anything about that. No, but seriously, I blogged a lot. I would write 2 to 3 blog posts a day. I would publish 6 to 14 times a week, which is easy to do when you don't have clients or work to do. All kinds of time on my hands. But over the years, I've developed a process for creating content. I developed a mindset for creating content. I developed a system, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And it's going to start with, actually, an even more crucial question. Who's your blog for? And I love that Ashley touched on this a little bit earlier this morning. Making sure that you're creating content and you're targeting the right audience is critical. And I'm going to show you how I wasted several years of my blogging career targeting the wrong kind of people with my content. Yeah, it's all about sharing our mistakes, right? So you can learn and make all new mistakes on your own. So then number 2, the meat of it is the blogger's mindset. As Terrence said, how to create 10x content 10 times faster. But when I say 10x content, I'm actually quoting Rand Fishkin, because Rand's talking not about 10 times more content, but 10 times better content. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of that content and making sure that I'm saving you time so that you're not spending 6 to 8 hours on a particular piece of content. And those last 3 points I'm going to go through really quickly because I will probably be running out of time, but they are how to make your content spark so that your readers, when they're going through your content, they're interested, they're engaged. They get past that first sentence and they keep going and they keep going. And then by the end of the content, we want to make sure that it's shareable so that your readers are so excited they can't wait to share your content with their audience so that they're helping to grow your audience. And then finally, we're going to make sure that your content is discoverable by search engines. And I know SEO might be kind of a bad word to some of you, and I'm going to give you some really cool things to do about that to make sure that people who have questions and want to read your answers can find it when they need it. So, without further ado, let's get into I almost forgot. I'm going to be talking about a lot of tools and a lot of other bloggers. And I'm going to be mentioning them, and so you don't have to remember them. You can go to this site, thesmh.co/blogging-resources. It's not an opt-in. Everything's right there, including these slides. All right, who is your blog for? Critical question. Who are you writing for? Who is your audience? Got it? Go. There we go. 3 things that we're going to be talking about: focus, personas, and analytics. And again, I know some of these might be bad words to you guys, but that's okay. We're going to get through this together. Focus is so important. You want to narrow your niche as much as possible. You want to narrow the audience that you're talking to as much as possible. And for some of you, this might seem counterintuitive. I want a big audience. I want everybody to buy my products. I want everybody to hire me and use my services. But the fact is, not everybody's going to. And the more you're able to focus who you're talking to, the more effective that message will be. I mentioned that I started an internet marketing business in 2006. I thought that my target audience was everybody in this room, every potential business owner. You would all want to hire me to help you market your businesses. So I wrote about anything related to business. I wrote about office furniture. I wrote about email signatures. I live blogged Apple events. I live blogged the iPhone 3 release. Yeah, I just dated myself a little bit more right there. That stuff was interesting to me, and I thought, if I got that content in front of a business owner, they would become introduced to me, and they maybe would read some of my other content, and then they'd want to hire me, right? That makes sense. No, that never happened. Those articles, those specific kinds of articles, got zero traffic, zero referrals, zero leads, zero sales, which meant the absolute bottom line value of that content was nothing, did nothing for my brand and business. It was the content that had a direct relation to either my story as a brand or the products and services that I was offering, and helped educate my target audience on how to use, in this case, social media or blog content. That was the content that actually drove results for my business, and that was a very painful lesson for me to have to learn. It took a little bit of time, and it wasted a lot of time. But if you can figure that out, that will save you a lot of time. So the next step to figuring that out is to develop personas. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but if you've never really taken the time to figure out what a persona is, the brief overview is it's simply an imaginary person, put a name on that person if you want to, that represents your target or ideal customer. And you then begin to associate attributes to that particular person. And you might have a couple different people. You might have Jane and Bob and Billy who have different aspects to them. Ashley had probably 5 personas that she outlined this morning, right? So you can include demographic and geographic information if that makes sense. If you're a local business here in Lima, you might put a 25-mile radius because you're really not going to help people outside of that radius because of the nature of your business. That's fine. Do that so you know you're targeting local consumers or local businesses. If that doesn't apply to you, that's great. But the next step is really the most important thing. What are their fears? What are their goals? What are their pain points? Because if you can understand what those things are, that means you can speak to those things in your content. You can help your target audience overcome their pains, overcome their fears when you're writing, or video, or audio, however you're communicating through your content. Those are the things that you need to be talking about in that content. And when you can do that, you will begin to bring people in. You will begin to grow that audience. You will begin to reach the kind of people that you want to reach. And when you're doing that, now you can go to your analytics and see what's actually working, right? Analytics don't do us any good if we haven't published. So hit the damn button, publish. And once you've been doing that for a while, you will begin to accrue analytics, Google Analytics for your own site's content that will tell you out of all the posts that you've published, what's doing well, what's not doing well. And by well, we're looking at things like page views, of course, but then what happens next? Somebody looked at this blog post, great. Did they read another and another? Did they go to another page? How long did they stay on your site? Or did they bounce out of your site? Those are just some of the basics. Again, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on Google Analytics. But use that tool, and the more often you use that tool, the more familiar you will get with not only how to use the tool, but the numbers that you're seeing. I guarantee you the first time you log into Google Analytics, it will not make sense. You won't know what you're looking at. But if you do it every single day for a month, now you're familiar with what your site looks like and how your site performs, and you will spot it when a particular piece of content is suddenly doing well, or a category of content is doing well. And you can also use social networks. All the networks now offer insights, and this is a big change from 10 years ago. Now we've got Facebook insights, and Twitter analytics, and Pinterest analytics, and Instagram analytics if you sign up for a business account on Instagram. And you can see which posts are performing well. And if you're using all those social networks, grab a tool that'll help you pull all those into a nice report. And you can see how your performance is doing, how different kinds of posts, whether they're shares of your content or just native posts on those platforms are doing, and that will help you understand what topics are resonating with your audience and which topics aren't. And a quick tip right here, a little hack. If you have an idea for a blog post and you're not really sure if your audience would be interested in that particular idea, float it on social media. Send out a tweet, post to your Facebook page. Don't just blatantly ask, hey, do you think this is a good idea? But broach the topic. Talk about that topic a little bit in kind of a teaser post and see what the reaction is. If a lot of people engage with that post, that'll probably make for a good blog post. So, one of the great examples of this that I like to give is Peg Fitzpatrick. If you don't know Peg, you should be following her on social media. She targets small to medium business owners, and you can tell that with her content. She is always speaking to that particular segment, and she is hyper-focused on providing them specific, strategic, actionable information on social media. So, let's get into the blogger's mindset. And like I said before, this is going to be a system for you to track your ideas, and it's also going to make it faster for you to turn those ideas into blog posts. And then after I've given you all the basics of this mindset, I'm going to tell you 2 different kinds of blog posts that maybe you haven't thought about creating before. Maybe you've got no experience of this, but you've probably read them, whether you realize it or not, and that's newsjacking and bottom of funnel content. So, this system for tracking ideas that I call the blogger's mindset, it starts with a tool. And if Mia was here, we'd be drinking because that was our thing. The tool is Evernote. You can use Google Keep or OneNote if you want to. You cannot use Word, you cannot use Google Docs or some other static note-taking thing. You need to use an app that exists in the cloud and exists on more than one device. I happen to use Evernote. And it looks like this. Sorry, it's probably a small screenshot on your screen. But Evernote is divided into notebooks, and within every note you can have notes. So I have a blogging notebook in Evernote. And within that blogging notebook, I have notes for every single idea that I've ever had for a blog post. And the beauty of using a tool like Evernote is I could be up here right now on stage and think, wow, this would make for a great blog post. And I can put it into Evernote, and it's instantly on my laptop in the back of the room. I can be waiting in the car while my wife is shopping and have a wonderful idea for a blog post, and I can put that into my notebook. I can hear a commercial. I can come out of the shower. Anywhere those ideas come to us, we can put them on our phone into Evernote and record them. And we all know how important it is to capture ideas for things when we have them, because an hour from now, that idea is gone. We have moved on with the rest of our lives. So, that's the first key, is to have that system. Now, as you're just starting up, by all means, have a little brainstorming session, right? Create a bunch of ideas all at once the first time you open up Evernote and create that first blogging notebook and start to fill it with ideas. What are the top 10 things that your customers or your potential customers are asking you? Even better question from my friend Stephanie Liu, what are the top 10 things your customers should be asking you? Have you ever wondered that? Have you ever recorded those? Those make for awesome blog posts. Get those into Evernote as a starter, and then you'll begin to practice, and you'll begin through repetition to get better and better at recording these ideas when they come to you. And they come to you from all over the place: social media, blog comments, other kinds of forums like Quora, emails. Anytime you're having a conversation with a reader, a prospect, a customer, you will begin to develop this blogger's mindset, which will trigger in the back of your mind. When I spend more than 5 minutes having a conversation with somebody and answering a question, gosh, that might actually be a good blog post. If one person is asking you a question, odds are there are 100 other people that have the exact same question. I have literally copied and pasted answers from social media into Evernote and turned those into blog posts. Verbatim. Because I know as I'm writing that particular comment, as I'm answering that particular question, I'm going to want to reuse this. I'm going to want to repurpose this content. Even though right now it's just a comment on a Google Plus post, I'm going to use this again somewhere else. So Once you've got that awareness in mind, you can also start to do some research. BuzzSumo is a great tool. They've got an aspect or a part of their product now called projects, where you can save articles, you can save social media posts, you can tag influencers. And the nice thing about BuzzSumo's tool, I mean, because you can do some of that in Evernote. You can pull in a link or pull in a picture or something like that, but BuzzSumo will continue to track and update that particular post. So whether it's your own post or somebody else's post, if you think that might make for a good topic, save it as a project in BuzzSumo and then check in on it a week later. Did it really get a lot of engagement, or did it pan out? Now, newsjacking. How many of you ever heard of newsjacking? Anybody? A couple? There's a couple different kinds of newsjacking. One kind of newsjacking is when you take a popular culture or pop culture reference like a film, and you try to relate it into your business. For instance, you might write a piece, the 5 ways my marketing team needs to act like Justice League. Terrible idea. Don't use that. Don't use that. In fact, that form of newsjacking seldom works. We see these articles all the time. We see these references to pop culture films and articles on Forbes and Huntington, and they're terrible articles. Don't try to write those. What I'm talking about is a different kind of newsjacking. This kind of newsjacking has to do with an event that has happened in your business or industry or in your region. And you're going to share with your audience what has happened, just like a reporter would, just like a journalist would. So it needs to be relevant to your audience. And now there's a timing factor involved as well. There's actually 5 questions that I want you to ask yourselves whenever you see something that has happened in your business or industry. And Terrence, you need to push that slide forward for me. Thank you. So, first question. Is my audience interested in what has happened? Something's happened. If you're in the social media space, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. For us, stuff is happening every single day. Just yesterday, Instagram released long-form video. That's awesome, I think. Does my audience care? Yeah, some people like it. Yeah, I know, Blake, you're all over that. Does my audience care? If I'm always writing about Twitter, if that's my thing, that's a little off. That's a little off focus, a little off topic. Maybe my audience isn't reading about social media at all. Maybe I'm writing about other things, even though I might think that's a cool thing. I have to wonder if my audience cares. And again, bear in mind, it's not so much the world in general, it's those personas we talked about a moment before. My target audience, are they interested in this topic? If they are, then by all means, proceed through this workflow and answer the next question. Am I interested? Do I care about this topic? That's more important than you might think, because you're the one who's got to write this post. You're the one who's got to spend some time creating this piece of content, and if you don't care about it, do not try to write it. You have to care about it. You have to be passionate about what it is that you're teaching, what it is that you're sharing, what it is that you're helping people with. And if that passion's not there, if that interest is not there, don't move forward. There's other things that you can be doing and writing about. The next question, though, is probably the most critical out of all of these questions in newsjacking, and that is, can I add value? Can I layer meaning on top of simply sharing what has happened? Because if you can't, then just tweet out somebody else's story and move on. I'm going to share an example in a little bit of when I was able to layer a ton of meaning on top of a simple what happened that truly helped my audience. And the last 2 questions are corollaries. Do I have time right now? And is this a good time? Even the best writers need 30 to 60 minutes to create a piece of content. If you've got to jet out to a meeting in 5 minutes, you do not have time to create a newsjacking article. So skip it. Move on to the next thing. And even more important than that is now a good time? I'm going to show you a graph or a screenshot. This is from David Meerman Scott's book on PR. And David is a friend of mine. He's an awesome writer. He's come up with, I think, the 6th edition of this book. And he talks a lot about newsjacking. And as you can see here, again, I know it's probably kind of small. This is a news cycle. Something has happened. And as awareness begins to grow in that thing that has happened, now people are beginning to talk about it. People are beginning to write about it. And imagine at some point towards the peak, if it's a big story, now it's on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and all the major news outlets, and everybody's talking about it. And then at some point, that particular story begins to lose interest, becomes old news. Yeah, I've heard about that. Thanks. That's not when we want to write our story, right? We want to write our story towards the beginning, as soon as possible after that event has happened, before awareness peaks. So that's when I say, is now a good time to write this article? Have we progressed too far into the news cycle? Is it midnight, wherever you are, and it's not a good time to publish because no one's going to see your article? Those are key questions. But if you're okay with all that, if you've got time and now's a good time, then yeah, jump in and create that post. Create that value for your audience. Help your audience understand what has happened and what does it mean to them. That's the magic and beauty of newsjacking, because they're going to want to know about that. So, the other piece of content that I want you to think about creating on a regular basis is called bottom-of-funnel content. Bill and I, one of our favorite speakers is Marcus Sheridan. He talks about this a ton. And one of the great examples he loves to give of bottom-of-funnel content is Yale Appliance. Now, has everybody here seen Glengarry Glen Ross, the movie? All right. So here's your homework assignment. Go home and watch Glengarry Glen Ross, because Alec Baldwin is going to help you understand the funnel of AIDA, awareness. Are people aware that they even have a problem? Are they interested in solving that problem? Are they interested in your brand? Are they ready to make a decision? Are they about to take some action? It's at that point when most consumers, in a somewhat longer buying cycle, are starting to do comparisons. Oh, all right, I know I want this product. I know I want a swimming pool. What are my choices? Who can I buy from? Where can I get a new air conditioning unit? Where can I get my air conditioning unit serviced? Which brings me back to Yale Appliance. In 2011, Yale Appliance is an appliance reseller and service business, probably not unlike some of you in the audience right now. And they were struggling in 2011, like so many other businesses. And so they decided that they were going to begin to create content, but different kind of content. They were going to focus on bottom-of-funnel content. They were going to write content that helped their audience compare and contrast appliances. They wrote an article, The 5 Most Serviced, Least Reliable Brands. That probably wasn't very popular with the appliance manufacturers. But it was a super popular article for Yale Appliance. Everybody wanted to know, oh my gosh, what are the appliances that I shouldn't possibly buy? And of course, they're finding this out on Yale Appliance's website, which meant as soon as they got done reading this article and they realized that maybe they shouldn't buy a Whirlpool or a Maytag or whatever it was that Yale was saying, don't buy those, now they're already on a place where they could find out, okay, well, what should I buy? Right? And this was based on data. Yale had service people going out every single day and servicing appliances, so they knew. This was, they didn't make this up. So that's the kind of bottom-of-funnel content that you can create that will help move the needle for your brand. Now, getting back to newsjacking for a second, I want to share with you an example from my own site, thesocialmediahat.com. In October of 2016, Thursday afternoon, I was looking at Feedly. Feedly is where I pull in my sources of news. And I saw an article on the blog of Vine that said important news about Vine. How many of you remember Vine? Anybody? Yeah? 6-second looping videos, right? So as you probably realize, this blog post said, hey, we're shutting it down. There were over 100 million people using Vine at the time. And I'd blogged about Vine a few times. This was big news. Vine was, at the time, one of the top 8 most used social networks. And there are a lot of social networks out there, so that was actually a big deal. And as I was reading through that particular article, It occurred to me that this was not enough information for your average Vine user. It was telling them, yeah, we're shutting down in January, so you've got a few months to figure things out. But it wasn't sharing things like, okay, what do I do with my Vines? What do I do next? I've been making 6-second videos for months now. Where am I going to go with that knowledge? Where am I going to push my audience? So I said, well, I've got some time right now. Let me bang out an article. And that's what I did. It took 45 minutes, summarized what had happened, tried to relate it back to some of the other things that I'd already written about, and I tried to answer some of the questions that I thought my audience would have, like, what do I do next? I said, well, go to Instagram. You can continue to do short-form video on Instagram. It went viral. It's hard to see, I know, but there were over 30,000 page views in 2 days. And it continued. It continues to this day. I was the #1 search for what's happening to Vine on Google, and it was driving hundreds and hundreds of page views every single day. And as Vine continued to come out with updates as to, oh, okay, well, we're going to let you archive, and oh, we're going to keep the app, it's going to be like a camera now, and whatever else that they had to say, I updated the article, and I put more information in there. And when Vine finally did shut down on January, I tweaked the title. I said, what happened to Vine? And it still gets about 450 page views a day today, almost 2 years later. One of the best comments that I have ever gotten in my entire blogging career was on this particular article. Some gal came to it a couple months later, hadn't really been paying attention, and was like, oh my gosh, Vine's gone, what happened? And of course, she Googled it and hit my website, started reading the article, and she left a comment. She said, as I went through your article, I kept having questions in my mind, and that was the next thing that I read. It was like you were in my head answering my questions with your content as I went through your article. I was like, well, that's pretty awesome. That was the whole point. Thank you. So that's the kind of reaction you can get from newsjacking content. So the last 3 things I said we're going to run through pretty quickly because I am sure I am getting close on time. First, we're going to want to make sure that your content sparks. And by spark, I'm talking about making it as attractive, as interesting, as compelling, as engaging as you possibly can make it. Nobody wants to read a solid column of text. Not anymore. They want that text to be broken up. It needs to be broken up. It actually starts with a featured image at the top of every single one of your blog posts. I am going to be checking all of your blogs next week, and if you don't have featured images at the top, I'm coming after you. I mean it. You have to have a featured image. It makes your content more engaging, it makes your site more visually appealing, and most importantly, when you and everybody else decides to share that content to social media, that's what makes the social shares look good. You have to have a featured image, and you have to use this confusing thing called OG image tag. That's a meta tag. OG stands for Open Graph. Open Graph is a series of structures that social networks adhere to and use to learn more about your content. Now, if you're using WordPress, like I'm sure most of you are, if you have that set up right and you upload a featured image that's the actual box next to your blog post, this will be filled in for you. If it's not, check with the developer, make sure that works. I use landscape images. I use 1024 by 512 sized images for all of my content because that works exceedingly well on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google+, the places that people are most likely to share links to your content. The link preview that those networks create will use this image, and if you don't have this image set, if you don't have this tag set, who knows what image Facebook will pull? It might be your picture from the bottom of the article. It might be an ad that's on the side of the post. It might be some other random picture, and we don't want that, right? We want a nice featured image that ties into the article, maybe has a little bit of branding, maybe even some text. That's going to be great. And like Angus mentioned earlier, you can use Canva to create those images super easily. I spend no more than 15 minutes creating my images, super fast. Next, make sure that you have images throughout your content. BuzzSumo did a study recently that found that articles that have images every 75 to 150 words are shared more. That means every other paragraph, can you possibly insert an image, screenshot, GIF, an infographic, whatever you can think of that's relevant to your content that can make that post more visually interesting, more visually engaging. Because it's not that somebody's going to share your content because you got a bunch of images. It's that they're going to get through your content all the way to the bottom and learn everything that you had to share, and now they're going to want to share your content, as opposed to someone who reads the first paragraph and then bounces out. They're never going to share your content. Also, you can use quotes. You can use quote graphics. You can embed social posts like tweets and YouTube videos and Facebook videos. One of my favorite hacks. This is something, again, Stephanie Liu from Lights Camera Live and I do all the time, and we love it. We'll go live on a Facebook post like somebody mentioned yesterday, have some live video, create that live video, and then create a blog content, a blog piece, either directly out of that video or related to that video, and we'll embed the video in the article. That's different from embedding a YouTube video. A YouTube video embedded just gives you the video player, and people play it or not, and that's fine. When you embed a Facebook video into an article, you're not just embedding the video player, you're embedding the entire Facebook post, which has any text that you have, as well as the like, comment, and share buttons. Do you know what happens when your readers look at that and they watch the video and they hit like, comment, or share? They like it, or they comment on it, and they share on the actual Facebook post, which puts that post back in the feed for their audience. You don't get that from a YouTube video. So consider that. And then, of course, use headlines, use bullet lists, use white space. As Ann Hanley likes to say, let your content breathe a little bit. So, you've got your content sparking, it's all sparkly, and people are enjoying it, and they're reading the whole thing, and there we go. Here's a great example of how to make your content spark. That's Rebecca Radice at RebeccaRadice.com. She uses short sentences. She embeds media. She's got quotes, click-to-tweets, headlines, lists. She will keep you engaged all the way to the end of your content, which means you will have read her entire article, and you will have learned something, and you will appreciate that. How to make it shareable is starting with better sharing buttons. Of course, that means you have to have sharing buttons, so make sure you've got sharing buttons on all of your blog posts. And use better ones. Don't just have the native Facebook button or the native Twitter button. Use a tool. I recommend Social Warfare. There's other plugins you can use. I love Social Warfare because they allow you to customize what the buttons look like so that they can match your branding, and they'll also have the social proof on there. Also, you're going to want to make sure, let me see if this works, that you're using pinnable images. If your audience is on Pinterest, use tall images, because that's what's going to suit that network even better than other kinds of images. And then try using click-to-tweet sometimes. If you have quotes or statistics in your content, use click-to-tweet to make it easy for people to share that out. Great example of that's Dustin TV. He happens to be the founder of Social Warfare. So he knows. He built it because there wasn't a great social sharing button tool. He's got top buttons, bottom buttons, floating buttons, pinnable images, the works. Finally, we're going to talk about how to make your content discoverable. And again, I'm going to run through these really quickly. And this is not going to be the top 10 SEO tips thing that are going to be dead tomorrow, right? These are 3 very actionable things that you can do with your content to make it discoverable on search engines from now until forever. I guarantee it. Starts with deep linking and forward linking. Deep linking is when you've got several pieces of content that you've already written on a particular topic, and now you're creating a new piece of content on that particular topic. As you're writing that new piece of content, find ways to reference and link back to those old pieces, so that when you publish it, your readers will see those links and they will dive down deeper. That's where the deep link comes. They'll dive down deeper into your site to learn about that particular topic, and that impacts your time on site and your bounce rate, which Google loves. But once you've published that new post, go back and edit the old posts to link to the newest one. I call that forward linking. So that'll keep people moving throughout your site. And I guarantee you, if somebody comes to your site and reads 5 or 6 articles from you, they're sold. They now know, like, and trust you, and they're ready to subscribe, to buy, whatever the case might be. Use keyword research to make sure that you're using the words that your customers and your prospects and your subscribers and your potential readers are using. SEMrush, Google Keyword Planner, BuzzSumo are all good tools that you can use for that. And then finally, and I know you're going to hate me for this, you have to write long-form content. Yeah, I said it. 10,000 words, people. Once in a while, not every post. 750 words for an average post is great for most of your content. But if you can get to 2,500 words or more, now we're talking about long-form content, which is going to be shared more, it's going to get more organic search traffic, it's going to drive true business revenue for you. One of my favorite hacks for this is a Facebook Live interview. A couple years ago, I had Mia Voss and Guy Kawasaki on a panel interview that I did about entrepreneurship. I asked them questions for an hour. 1 hour of video equals 10,000 words. You better believe that was a great blog post for me. And you can do that once a quarter, once a year, but do it. Great example of this is Andy Crestodina from Orbit Media. Every year, Andy does a blogger survey, and he just sends an email to all the bloggers he knows, and he knows a lot of bloggers by now, and says, hey, how much time do you spend writing blog posts? How many blog posts did you publish last year? What did you use to research topics for blog posts? All the questions that, frankly, I've been answering today. He asks everybody else. And then he compiles all their answers, and he analyzes them, and he brings in other influencers to throw in their 2 cents as to what it is that he just discovered. And he publishes that as a survey that drives tons of traffic, gets backlinks. I just cited him in a presentation, for goodness sake. That's hugely effective for your brand. So if there's anything that I can leave you with today, is to think about the kind of content that you can possibly create for your brand, whether it's starting with video or audio or written content, and focus on reaching your target audience with the stories and the information that they will find helpful, and try to elevate the quality of the content that you're creating. Try to track all those ideas when you have them so that you're not spending a lot of time staring at a blank white screen saying, and I know Mike told me I need to publish, but I don't know what to write about. Have that system in place. It will make it so much easier for you. Again, all those resources are at this particular address. Thank you so much.